It's a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity. Actually, it's 4 times larger than the market cap of Solana and Ethereum combined. So it just gives people a sense of how gargantuan it will be. And Bitcoin at this juncture, especially with the bull market coming, has almost unlimited liquidity. ADA is the deflationary asset, just like Bitcoin is a deflationary asset, so it's very similar. It's a slightly different emission schedule, but inflation is monotonically decreasing. So once Bitcoiners start seeing all of that, they say, okay, the principles align, the technology aligns, and it does in many ways feel like a spiritual successor or continuation of what they're looking for. But what's nice is that Bitcoin and Cardano kind of make each other better. Bitcoin is a very secure audit layer. It's a giant value store, a lot of liquidity.
As Bitcoin powers through resistance levels like a freight train, it's sparking a wave that's rippling across the entire market, and Cardano is riding that momentum at full speed. Bitcoin has surged past the $2 trillion market cap once again, unleashing both a psychological boost and a financial ripple effect throughout the altcoin space. Right at the center of this surge is Cardano, rising not just alongside Bitcoin, but because of it. These two blockchain giants are now locked in a powerful synergy. Charles Hoskinson, the visionary founder of Cardano, recently pulled back the curtain in an electrifying interview. He described Bitcoin as the digital gold, an unstoppable, incorruptible audit layer in the crypto ecosystem. But Cardano? That's where the real innovation happens. It's a deflationary asset like Bitcoin, but with added intelligence. Smart contracts, scalability, governance, and a bold mission to build a decentralized future. As Bitcoin roars ahead, Cardano accelerates in tandem, not by chance but by design. Bitcoin lays the foundation, Cardano brings the innovation. Together, they're reshaping finance into a new reality where trust meets cutting-edge technology. Hoskinson's message was clear. This is just the beginning of something massive. The momentum is unstoppable, and Cardano isn't just keeping pace, it's setting the stage for what's coming next. Still paying taxes on your crypto gains? What if you didn't have to? With ITrust Capital, you can buy and sell crypto inside a tax-advantaged IRA, giving you a smarter way to grow your portfolio without worrying about capital gains tax. That's why they're the #1 crypto IRA platform in America, with billions in tax-advantaged transactions. There are multiple ways to fund your account. You can make a contribution, transfer an existing IRA, or roll over an old 401k or employer plan. You'll get access to a wide range of digital assets, low fees, and 24/7 trading, all backed by secure, one-to-one asset ownership with institutional-grade custody. And if you have questions, ITrust Capital offers 100% US-based customer support with real people ready to help. Click the link, use code DOSE7, and get your $100 funding bonus today. Start building your crypto wealth, tax-advantaged, with ITrust Capital.
It's been the midpoint of a very long conversation about how does Bitcoin achieve programmability. And it's been like the holy grail for a lot of us in the cryptocurrency space who kind of grew up with Bitcoin. Because back in the day, we all tried our hand at somehow making it better. So they're like a lot of the Ethereum people, we started with projects like Color Coins and Mastercoin. I was on the BitShares side. But the basic idea was, could you create overlay protocols or companion protocols where you would have some degree of programmability? So you can issue assets, you can have smart contracts, but nobody quite had the courage on the Bitcoin side for a very long time to try to actually pull some ability into Bitcoin for programmability until the Taproot revolution went live right around 2021. And then it took a little while for people to figure out a development model for it. And then we started seeing this concept of BitVMs, Bitcoin virtual machines.
Right.
And the first generation was kind of a toy, but now we're in BitVM2, BitVMX, and now we're starting to get to a point where Bitcoin has a brain, so it actually can talk to other systems. You can actually program enough to have interoperability. So if your goal is to create digital gold and a decentralized store of value, the minute you add programmability, you exponentially increase the complexity and difficulty of the system, and then suddenly everything's up for grabs, like changing the consensus algorithm or the block time or the governance structure. And there was no clear way without a founder around or some centralized organizing authority to be able to manage that because it's so complicated and there's so much movement with it. Second, there were security and technological reasons. So when you look at the security side of these things, the last time they actually tried to change Bitcoin script to make it more expressive, it led to an inflation bug that for a period of time created billions of fake Bitcoin. So it was a very bad time. I believe it was around 2010. So they tried it once before and it scared the hell out of everybody. And, a corollary to that is the big block debate in 2015, where there was a conversation of should we start changing the protocol to accommodate more use and utility, or should we keep most of these things to live outside of the ecosystem, the layer 2 space or the sidechain space, and the small blockers one, so it stayed in the sidechain side of the space. And the third thing is it's a bit cultural, I'd say. The Bitcoin maximalism has always been very resistant to DeFi in general, and it took them a little while to start getting comfortable with it. And I think a lot of that was just they didn't see a way to do that with values and safety.
Right.
I often like to say there are 3 rules in Bitcoin. You can never violate them if you want to be successful in the Bitcoin space. So rule number 1 is there is only Bitcoin. So in other words, you have to use the security of the Bitcoin network, and you can't really talk about other systems. You just talk about Bitcoin.
Right.
Rule number 2, you pay transaction fees in Bitcoin. You can't have another token. And rule number 3, you get your yield back or your returns back in Bitcoin. So unless and until you're able to present that experience, you're kind of dead in the water philosophically, culturally, and technologically. And it's only been recently where Bitcoin DeFi has evolved to that point where we now can actually entertain those 3 rules.
Cardano's involvement in all of this, and I would love to hear from you how that went, what you're doing, and just how big of an opportunity this is.
Yeah, it's a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity. Actually, it's 4 times larger than the market cap of Solana and Ethereum combined. So it just gives people a sense of how gargantuan it will be. And Bitcoin at this juncture, especially with the bull market coming, has almost unlimited liquidity. So it's the ecosystem that really needs this. And what we do is we look at it like a stack. And so the first layer of the stack is the infrastructure. So that's how does Bitcoin go about talking to other systems, and what trade-off profile are you prepared to accept for that to happen? So the settlement time, how long does it take to go in and out of the system? Is it minutes? Is it hours? Is it days? The security. So are you solely relying on the security of the Bitcoin network and proof of work, or is it some form of hybrid model where you're using other networks or some exotic thing like exotic crypto, like multi-party computation or trusted hardware? And the cost. And so every one of these transactions, are they $1? Are they $10? Are they $100 of value? Because it's not really practical if every time you want to do this, it's $5,000 a transaction. So what's happened is that we have seen a dramatic improvement in all 3 of those categories. We've seen a reduction in the latency, we've seen an improvement in the security model, and we've seen actually a mass reduction in the transaction fees. And we're getting to that point where the trade-off profile is reaching a point where consumers are going to come in. Second layer of the stack is the user interface, and so the wallets have to be ridiculously simple, and you always have to remember those 3 rules. There's only Bitcoin, you pay fees in Bitcoin, and you get yield in Bitcoin. So what we did is we tried to pull an Apple with the iPod with the wheel. We said, you know what, we're going to do the toggle. So with a little toggle switch,
Nice.
you have your Bitcoin and you have a switch, and you push the switch and it says DeFi mode. And there you go, you're in Bitcoin DeFi mode. And no mention of another network, no mention of other things. And we found a way so that all your transactions, you can pay your fees in Bitcoin, and all your returns you can get back in Bitcoin. And then the third part is, well, what can you do with it? Where does the yield come from? Can you lend it? Can you stake it? Can you buy things with it? Can you trade it on DEXs? So you need a DeFi ecosystem for this. That's multi-chain. And all 3 of these will grow in parallel. So the event that we had was really an event about bringing an ecosystem of partners together, and they live in all different parts of the stack. So some of the people that came up from Argentina, like Fairgate, for example, and others like Bitcoin OS and the Sundial team, these people were really worried about the infrastructure side and how do we make that better, faster, cheaper. Then the wallet side, we had the Lace Wallet demo the toggle switch and kind of show that as an archetype that can then be ported to other larger wallets like Bitcoin.com or Blockchain.com, which have 110 million users.
Wow.
And then when you look at the ecosystem side, a lot of Cardano dApps were present, but then we also talked about the development experience. What we like is that all those magical languages that we came up with in development experience, we came up for Cardano, which is a UTXO system, which is the closest you can get to Bitcoin. Can we use those tools on Bitcoin itself? So is there a path where a Cardano programming language can be used to write Bitcoin script? Is there a path where a Cardano off-chain host like Maestro or BlockFoss can also be used to build a dApp that's on Bitcoin. And so we showcased that as well, and we kind of demoed a lot of the different things. So it's the middle part of the conversation. It's not concluded, but certainly a lot of great progress has been made, and some of the things have already been running on Bitcoin mainnet. So we had demonstrated transaction between Bitcoin mainnet and Cardano mainnet, where an ordinal was able to move back and forth, which is a huge leap forward. It really proves not only the concept, but it proves it at scale.
For years, people have aimed to make Bitcoin programmable by adding features like smart contract. Early attempts focused on layering new protocols on top of Bitcoin, but real progress came with the Taproot upgrade in 2021. Since then, Bitcoin virtual machines have advanced, enabling Bitcoin to interact more seamlessly with other systems. However, introducing programmability isn't without risks. Modifying Bitcoin's core is notoriously difficult and delicate. Recently, Bitcoin DeFi has started following 3 core principles. Use only Bitcoin, pay fees in Bitcoin, and receive returns in Bitcoin. Cardano aligns closely with this approach, offering similar mechanisms but with enhanced programmability. The vision is to create a secure, fast, and cost-effective infrastructure that bridges Bitcoin with other networks. Developers, including those from Cardano, have already demonstrated real-world interactions between Bitcoin and Cardano, proving the potential of this technology. Now, let's dive back into more insights from Charles Hoskinson's conversation.
Cardano is an amazing computation layer. And so when you pull these two pieces together and you have a little toggle to be able to go back and forth, we can allow a seamless experience. The other thing is Cardano has a built-in feature called Babel fees. And what this allows you to do is pay transaction fees in different currencies. So you don't have to pay your fee in ADA, you can pay it in Bitcoin. And cool. So it allows you to get back to those 3 rules. I say, hey, you got to pay in Bitcoin and get Bitcoin back.
Right. Sounds like the first rule of Fight Club,
Yeah.
But we just extended to the Bitcoin.
Yeah, you never talk about another altcoin. There's only one God, it's Satoshi. Well, the holders are different. So when you look at it, the U.S. government's going to hold 212,000 Bitcoin instead of selling it. So with the crypto reserve, the U.S. government's one of the largest Bitcoin holders in the world. And it's the same when you look at BlackRock or Grayscale or you look at MicroStrategy. So when you have institutions who want to maximize return and yield for their buyers and their investors, you really change the paradigm a little bit from the old school maximalism. The other thing is putting the user into the driver's seat of the trade-off profile is a very powerful thing. If you want to live in a world where every transaction is always secured by Bitcoin, there's a path to do that. If you want to live in a world where it's a little faster and cheaper and you have still very good security, but it's not completely secured by Bitcoin, there's a way to do that as well. But you don't pick that for the user. You let them decide, and that's really the cool part about that layer too. If you design that UX layer the right way, then it's just basically not only a toggle, but an advanced setting, and you should either pick the default setting or you can pick your own customization of it. And once you start looking at it that way, then maximalists fall into a configuration setting as opposed to a philosophy. They just basically pick the most draconian and expensive way, but then other people will say, actually, I like the other way. I think that's a better way of going about it. But the other paradigm is that it's a silly thing to say that gold is only valuable if it sticks around the gold mine. The Bitcoin network is a gold mine. It's the most expensive and successful gold mine, I think, of all time. And it produces gold, which is Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is scarce and it's valuable and it's expensive to make. Well, you can move gold around. And so Bitcoin can go on a vacation. It can go to Coinbase. It can go to, Binance. It can go to other networks as wrapped assets. And you can do things with it. And then after you're done with your vacation, you click the toggle and you go back home, back to the network. You toggle
back home to where you came from.
Yeah, exactly right. And tourism is great. When you look under the hood, if you pay fees in Bitcoin under the hood, there's ADA being transacted there, but the user doesn't see it or feel it. So just like when a tourist goes to France and they have their credit card and they pay in dollars, they don't feel that they're paying in euros. They see the dollars. And there's just some magic infrastructure that just works under the hood. And in this case, it's fully decentralized. And that's how it should be. And then you start looking, okay, well, if you want to do these things, you can either do it on a regulated financial exchange that's centralized and it runs 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, or you can do it on a decentralized network that runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with no custodial risk. Which one would you prefer? And if you're a maximalist, you're like, well, it kind of created this whole Bitcoin thing to get away from the former, so maybe the latter is pretty appealing. Let me have my gold go on vacation.
Bitcoin DeFi as it is. So how far away are we kind of from making this a reality and an everyday occurrence?
Well, it's more of an iterative approach. And so it already works on mainnet. It's just how do you make it better, faster, cheaper, and how do we continue to be relentless about the user experience? So on our side, layer 2, so the wallet layer of it, we already have Bitcoin support and integration for the Lace wallet, which is desktop right now, and it's coming mobile soon. And that toggle switch will come the second half of the year. And that's the beginning of the conversation. There's a lot of infrastructure improvements that have to be made to get it into an appropriate latency and cost window. And that's what we're working on with Fairgate and the BitVMX platform. And I think that iterative improvement will be very fast now that there's probably more than a dozen people working full time on that. And the big thing is, well, we'd like it to have something you can do when you click that toggle switch. So you have to build an ecosystem. So we've already begun workshops, we've already been building coalitions and talking to a lot of not only Cardano-DeFi, but other ecosystems as well, and saying, how do we bring these people together and figure out great ways to get yield? Because, here's the thing, if you're a Bitcoiner, let's say you got in very early, like Bitcoin at $10 or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, you probably don't want to sell your Bitcoin at $120,000 and have a gargantuan capital gains event.
Right.
So if your hypothesis is that Bitcoin is just going to continue to get more valuable, well, right now your investment strategy is to buy and hold. Well, what if you could lend it or, do something else with it?
Borrow against it.
Yeah, and then if you can do that, then the nice thing is that you don't have a tax event from that, but you can get a yield from it and it'll continue to appreciate in value. And that's what people do all the time in traditional finance.
Right.
So we think the lending markets are going to be massive for Bitcoin because of the supply dynamics that they have. So that ecosystem side is mostly partner driven, and we have some really cool products on the real finance, the real fi side, so real world assets that we want to bring in.
Charles Hoskinson explains that Cardano builds on many of Bitcoin's core principles while enhancing them with greater flexibility. Using an improved UTXO model, Cardano adds full programmability but keeps Bitcoin's familiar accounting system. Its consensus mechanism is a proof-of-stake variant inspired by Bitcoin's proof-of-work, offering similar security and finality. Unlike Bitcoin's overlay system for colored coins, Cardano has native asset issuance built directly into its protocol, supporting decentralization across governance, development, and consensus. Hoskinson describes Cardano as a powerful computation layer designed to complement Bitcoin's secure value layer. Features like Babel fees allow users to pay transaction fees in multiple currencies, including Bitcoin, following Bitcoin's key rules. Use Bitcoin, pay fees in Bitcoin, and receive returns in Bitcoin. Users also have flexibility in choosing transaction speed and security, moving away from strict maximalism toward practical options. Comparing Bitcoin's network to a gold mine, Hoskinson says it produces scarce Bitcoin that can later be freely transferred, enabling more versatile use cases. Bitcoin DeFi is now live on mainnet, with ongoing improvements focused on lowering costs and latency and enhancing user experience through projects like BitVMX and partnerships with wallets such as Lace. The goal is to create a thriving ecosystem where Bitcoin holders can lend and earn returns without selling, benefiting from Bitcoin's potential long-term price growth. What part of the Bitcoin-Cardano partnership excites you most? Let us know in the comments. For more Daily Dose Crypto news, check out these 2 awesome videos on your screen. Click now and we will see you on the next video.